Welcome everyone to the Jury Award Conversation Series. Today we are speaking with the winners of the Drama and Comedy Teleplay Pilot Awards and the Drama and Comedy Teleplay Spec Awards. Before we hop into the conversation, I just want to first briefly touch on some context. So this is the 27th year of the Austin Film Festival script competition, and this year we received a record number of 13,175 scripts. Out of this bunch, we had 5 respective finalists within the pilot categories and 3 respective finalists within the spec categories. Our goal each year with the competition is to help discover the next generation of writers and help all writers who engage with us hone and advance their craft. Okay, so we'll go ahead and jump into introductions. So to start, we have the winners of the Drama Teleplay Pilot Award, Melissa Turkington and Ben Samuels, who co-wrote Richmond Underground. Winner of the Comedy Teleplay Pilot Award, Rowan Meyer, who wrote Lemonlight. The Drama Teleplay Spec Award winner, Casey Bischel, whose spec script title is Different Dances for the show Pose. And last but not least, the Comedy Teleplay Spec Award winner, Ethan Von Zamft, whose spec script title is The Lamp for the show What We Do in the Shadows. So welcome everyone. Thank you all so much for joining. Very excited to get to speak with you all. I know you all just found out that you're winners just a couple days ago. So I can feel the excitement in the air. It's really great. I guess the first question I have for you all is, just kind of what kind of stories attract you most? And does your inspiration kind of like stem from a common place, or is it kind of do you get it, from kind of day-to-day life, or do you kind of what's your kind of research for finding your next kind of subject?
I don't really sit down and be like, okay, this is what interests me. This is what I want to write about. It really does kind of feel like something just sort of drops from somewhere and happens to land on me. I don't think it really has anything to do with me personally. Elizabeth Gilbert has this amazing TED talk. She wrote Eat, Pray, Love, and it's about your elusive genius, as she calls it, which is because back in the day they used to believe that your inspiration came from this little spirit that actually had nothing to do with you. So you couldn't really take all the credit if you did something good, but then if you did something bad, you couldn't really be blamed completely for that. So I kind of like that idea. I like to think of this little spirit just sort of whispering random and very often disturbing ideas into my brain. And I just try to be as close to my typewriter. Yeah, I use a typewriter.
We're in that frame of mind now.
Laptop as I can.
I think what it is really is I want something to click. I feel people intuitively know when something feels right. And I think that's what I look for. I look for something that just feels right. And I don't know, maybe it is that Gilbert quote, but I feel I know when something feels right. And I guess it does sort of just kind of come up and hit me, but it doesn't feel I said, it doesn't feel divinely inspired, but it definitely feels just intuition, something that just feels right.
If you don't mind me piggybacking onto that, I wonder if you both would, and everyone would kind of agree that, I think so much of it is curiosity. And what we're all describing, I think, is that we're actively looking at all times. It's for me, it's just whether that's books or watching other things or just going out into the world and meeting other people, it's that daily curiosity where the stories maybe can magically kind of come from. And then the alchemy happens and it kind of seizes our interest and we run with it. But I do feel that, like anything, I was a psych and drama major, which I always kind of joked was the same major, but I believe a lot in human conditioning and behavior patterns. And I do think the curiosity, like anything else, is something that you need to reinforce every day. It's like going to the gym and working on a muscle. It's curiosity is a muscle. And so every day you need to wake up and kind of chase it. Otherwise, it's just not going to find you. I think people kind of sit around waiting for that one great idea. And I think in a day, if you can have 5 kind of different ideas, 4.5 of which you discard, it's maybe you're onto a kernel of something that becomes a script, that Ethan wrote or Rowan wrote, something like that.
I'm aggressively uncurious, so I completely disagree. But
What a devout contrarian.
I think I look for the thing that terrifies me. So ideas are difficult. I know some people are incredibly prolific and can just pull it out of the sky. I can't. And I have my whole list of potential ideas that are terrible, that I always go back to because they have some sort of kernel in them. But every time I start a new project, it freaks me out. And that's a good thing. So I know if I'm scared of it, it's the thing that I have to do. If I'm not scared of it, it's probably boring and I don't know what it is yet. So I put it on the list. But I think, it's a little bit of that curiosity too, like that thing you can commit yourself to for potentially up to, 2-3 years. So it's gotta have the excitement behind it.
Casey, what's your secret?
I don't think they do it. I mean,
So
I
we
think
can all steal it.
Sorry?
So we can all steal it.
No, I don't think that. The reason why I was inspired by Pose, I guess, is because Pose is such an inspiring show. Its exuberance and creativity and themes are unparalleled. And, the show has a rich history, strong sense of community, a celebration of the body, and a creation of a new art form in the form of ballroom dance. So basically, it has all the things going for it that a good show should have.
Yeah.
I wanted to write dick jokes for vampires, so that's where I come
It's a
from.
noble calling.
Yeah.
This is the good work.
So I'm curious, y'all touched on kind of your capturing the ideas or just kind of how they come to you in some way, but do you have like a process for selecting the ones? Because I'm sure a lot of, you all have a lot of ideas that are just constantly kind of bubbling up and they don't always align with like the specific project that you might be working on. What's your if you have a process, like kind of, if you could share and touch on that, just kind of, that would be great. And just kind of, what's your kind of method capturing those? Yeah.
Someone mentioned lists. I think that's good. I think just anything that catches your eye, you write it down, and maybe today is not the day that it's going to again click for you. But then if you go back and revisit it and see it, then that helps. That's a good start. Yeah, I think.
I'll let Melissa speak more to this process, only to say that Richmond Underground really started with her. I mean, it was her idea, it was her baby, it was a discovery that she made. We're both history nerds. I mean, the funny thing for us is we met in an online screenwriting group only a couple of years ago, and we only met for the first time at last year's Austin Film Festival. So in some funny way, this is like coming full circle. But she had this script that scared her, and we'd gotten used to reading each other's writing and going through that kind of process of revision, which I think we had both kind of struggled with independently and had become very valuable to each other in that way. And then there was just something about this script that we knew we wanted to kind of create a new process. Neither one of us had obviously written together before. We, on some level, kind of still barely knew each other, but it was this act of trust. But I'll let you speak more, Melissa, to where it came from originally, because I only came to it after a certain point.
So making my lists, right? So I'm coming off of this other script, which was about a woman who was really toxic and awful. And the script is still awful, but I really wanted to write something. I wanted to write something that kind of renewed my spirit a little bit. And so I went searching for that, didn't know what it would be. And I found out about Elizabeth, who's this white woman who ran a spy ring during the Civil War, and thought, okay, that's kind of interesting. But then digging into the research more, finding out that this is just another white lady in history, taking claim over work that Black people did for her. And that her relationship was in fact slightly toxic. And so that actually became much more interesting to me. And I think telling Mary's story was the piece that really brought it home. So
I write a lot of emails to myself throughout the day. I'll just be like, oh, that's an idea. I'll just email it to myself. And if I'm still kind of interested in it, like 3 or 4 days later, then I'll maybe start to tackle it. And once I do choose a project I want to write, I typically write the first 5 to 10 pages and put it away for 2 years and then finish it in a couple weeks. So not the best not the best way to get there, but it's my process and it's what I have.
That's super interesting. Yeah. Is that I'm curious. Like, is there a reason? Like, I wonder. Do you allow it to just kind of bubble up? Is that kind of or is it just it's just a habit that kind of developed over time?
Yeah, no, it's kind of like, this is going to sound so douchey, but like, the first 5 to 10 pages, I write the caterpillar, and then I just like let it go into the cocoon for a couple years, and then it just kind of like takes shape, even without thinking about it. Just like it sort of just takes shape inside the back of my brain, and then a year and a half to 2 years later, I'm typically like, I just know exactly what it wants to look like.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish it would go a little faster, but I guess you can't rush these things. You can't rush butterflies either, apparently.
I was really hoping that was going to be like a very hungry caterpillar metaphor.
Yeah.
I was hoping that like it devours your life or something.
That's my neurosis. Devouring my life.
Balance, good to have.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, for this show in particular, I'm not from any of the communities that Pose celebrates, and so I didn't want to pretend like I was. And so what I really focused on, I think there are 4 storylines in my script. I really wanted to focus on continuing the storylines that already existed, maybe putting my own spin on things. That was about 3 of the 4 storylines. And then the 4th one, I made sure to incorporate a story from someone that I know like really well, so I could write about that story accurately. And for everything else, I guess it was just importing things from my own life into these characters.
So then, what you all have written either a spec or pilot script for TV. What attracts you most about that kind of episodic television medium? And like, I guess what attracts you, but also what excites you the most about it.
I will tell you, I was not excited. This is
Really?
my very first pilot. I come from features. I did not want to make a pilot. I wanted to make it a feature. And again, because it was terrifying to do this particular story for the first time as a pilot and figuring out the structure at the same time that I'm figuring out who these women are and how to tell their story correctly. And Ben and a few other people kicked my ass and said, this is a bigger story, and you need to take your time with it. And so I took that risk. But I will say that what I did is I outlined it as a mini series. So I could still see the end of it, and I could still see the major beats in between. And that gave me a little breathing room to be able to say, okay, I can see the end. If I need to expand on it later, I can. But essentially, it's just one big, long feature.
I love the episodic format. I grew up on TV a little too much. It sort of was my babysitter for several years. The thing I love about the episodic format, I think, is that you can take your time. You can take your time developing characters, knowing that over the course of the series, you'll only deepen them and fall more in love with them and find out more about them. And also that you don't have to have all of the answers when you start out. You don't have to know exactly what the final episode of season 5 is going to look like. Because chances are you won't even get picked up for that long anyway. So there you go. I like to just have like a good first season arc and then figure it out later. Figure it out once the producers are like, you're greenlit, and then you can stress about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I really appreciate TV for the same reasons that everyone else mentioned. I think, in my past, I'd written a book, and I was also a newspaper reporter. And when I eventually came to TV and film, the thing that attracted me most about them was that, they're just sort of the dominant media format today that most people learn about the world. I mean, the best storytelling in the world these days is on television, and it's such an inspiring place to be, and it's such like an inspiring format to try and learn how to do. And when you do it well, that just sort of reinforces the habit that, just to inspire you to keep writing.
I'm right there with Casey. I think, so much of it, I grew up on the screen, and, what I was attracted to was kind of bold storytelling. And that doesn't always mean issue-based. It was just, sometimes it was pure entertainment, but it's like it was a bold vision. It was like a great story that I would return to in most cases, like I've watched the same movies over and over, a couple times every couple of years. It's like because I just love them so much, and there's something kind of integral about them. And now, obviously, that gravity is towards television. That's where bold storytelling is. And that's not to say that I don't watch a ton of studio films. I tend to see most movies in theaters as they come out. I'm still devout to that first kind of temple that I went to, that first church that I attended, which was movie theaters. And I hope that they come back stronger than ever. But TV is where it is now. That's great storytelling, and you can really take a risk. You can tell a totally unconventional story, or you can bring light onto something that has never been brought out of the darkness before. And there's so many avenues. I mean, when Melissa came with this, she was so scared of it, and yet at the same time, it felt so urgent. It felt so necessary, and it felt like television was the right place to put it, for it to be kind of taken on with the kind of respect and dignity, but also fearlessness that it would demand.
I mean, I sort of echo what everyone else said. Like, I love the episodic nature of television, where you don't need to have a big resolution, but yeah, like you can just kind of come in, take a snapshot of a situation in someone's life, and have that maybe resolve itself, but there are still questions that are left that you want to come back and revisit. Like, I love the appointment nature of television. I love seeing something, spending some time with people, knowing that you're going to come back in a week and spend some more time with them as well.
Do y'all dip into any other kind of mediums at all? Like, could be features mostly. I know you mentioned you initially envisioned Richmond Underground to be a feature, but not only features. Like, do y'all dip into like prose or poetry or other art forms? I'm just curious, like what if there's other mediums that y'all like to kind of explore.
Rowan was saying he emails himself ideas. I email myself rap lyrics. Just what it would be one line. I'm like, man, if someone had skill and could spit that would be so good. So I just write them down. I'm collecting them. Maybe I'll have a song in like 5 years. That's my caterpillar butterfly process. Like the world's most epic rap song.
Secretly being gonna eventually be a musician just at the
Right.
in a few years. Yeah. Great. Anyone else?
I definitely let the story kind of dictate the direction. On some level, it's like allowing the story kind of say what it wants to be. And so Richmond Underground, it just felt so organic that it was a TV show. And thankfully, Melissa ultimately agreed. But then other things like absolutely deserve to be features. It's funny, I had a long relationship for the last about 6-7 years with a Holocaust survivor, a wonderful man who I always thought I would kind of tell his story through a miniseries. But ultimately, it kind of became clear to me that what it really wanted was a book. So I wrote the first book, which, because I come from this world, because I come from screenwriting, it definitely has a strong narrative voice. It's first person, it's immersive, it's always present tense. You age with the narrator throughout the story of his life. But it was the right choice, and the book came out December of last year. And then I've dabbled a little bit with playwriting as well. I did a 1-act here, which became kind of the first. We then adapted it, my brother and I, into a short film, and that became the new direction of really chasing stories that were purposeful. We love entertainment. We continue to be driven by entertainment, but really fostering those voices that had something to say and wanted to say it urgently. And that, I think, I'm in New York and Melissa's in LA, so a lot of my overlap is with the world of theater. So much of it is about, ideas of safe spaces and safe rooms to create. And I've always loved that. I love that the work itself should happen safely, but the work itself should never be safe. And those two things, it's so important that we kind of hold both of those delicately in this moment and decide exactly what that looks like. But I never want to do safe work, even as I work safely.
Yeah, as I mentioned, I come from the world of nonfiction book writing, and then also as a journalist, I worked at a daily newspaper outside of St. Louis, and also I did daily journalism in addition to writing long form features and an investigative project that I was focused on for a year. I think most of what I've written for TV and film has been on the TV side. However, I also have a feature for John Boyega. I know he's listening right now, so get in touch with me and let's make some money. That's about it for right now.
I have a feature, several plays and shorts, and a couple short books. So
Maybe you guys had the same experience. Sorry, I just wonder, was anyone else kind of early on told to kind of like focus in one area? Because I feel like the multi-hyphenate thing now is like everybody. Like we all like to write in different areas, but like I think there was this thing maybe a generation before us where it's like obviously you were film or TV, and now it's like everybody writes wherever they want to write. And there's playwrights who are transferring over to TV shows and people coming out of writers' rooms to do their first features. And it just seems like everything's a little bit more nebulous now. You can move back and forth.
I think that's great.
Yeah.
I mean, I think everyone has lots of different talents, in their toolbox. And I have a couple of, in addition to this spec script, I also submitted a spec for the comedy half hour and then a drama pilot. And so I think people will just have a multitude of voices, and wherever they can find the best way to plug it in, that's great.
At what point in y'all's kind of writing career, like, did y'all realize like you have to, I guess, started to take your writing seriously? Like, at what point in your journey were you like, this is something I need to really devote time to really kind of, allow it to flourish? Was there any? I know there's a lot of like, I'm sure there's like consecutive events that kind of accumulated to that point, but was there anything that stood out, like any kind of mentors or just kind of realizations that like, this is something I really need to pursue?
I had a moment back a couple of years after I moved out here. I got a job at a production company, and they did something where they paid to send me to New York. And so I got to stay in this fancy hotel and everything. It had this amazing story, amazing time. And then I came back and I remember thinking, I just had one of the most amazing experiences of my life. Like, why aren't I happy? And it, hit me that it's because I've been so busy trying to work and do this stuff, for the production company that I wasn't writing. And it sounds stupid, but I finally realized like what Morpheus says in the Matrix, like there's a difference between knowing the path and walking the path. It's like, I knew the path was there the entire time. Like I see it. I know I should be doing that. But then for whatever reason, it hit me. And I was like, oh, like this is what I need to do. I just, for the rest of my life. So,
yeah.
I would say as a woman in the creative field, you default to saying, I cannot do this. I should not do this. I'm not meant for this. Look at the room. I don't belong here. And I had an instructor in college who was a badass documentarian, and she did not take anything from anybody. And I would come to every project with, this is crap. Like, I don't want anyone to look at this. I don't want feedback on this. This is awful. And she took me aside one day and she was like, get over yourself. If you're going to survive in this field, you need to grow a spine. You are good at this. You need to figure out why you think you're good at this, and you need to internalize that. And I think that was the moment where I said, okay, I can do this. I fell in love with it long before that. The first time I held a Bolex, I was in, but I actively tried to reject that until I got the support of a mentor. And I think that is pretty common with women I talk to in the industry. Someone has to let you in and tell you that you're worth it before you tell yourself you're worth it. So that was really important for me. That was the turning point.
I was just a backyard film kid. My dad had a VHS camera on his shoulder when I was a kid, and that was it for me. I mean, it's all play. I love it, and the play can be serious or the play can be funny, but it's all make believe for grown-ups. Every time I'm on a set, I tell people it's like, we have the best job in the world. We're so lucky to be here. Let's just like keep that spirit, and remember that we are trying to say something. We are trying to change something depending on the day. But really we're so fortunate, and hopefully we can share that joy with other people.
I started my career as an actor. I moved to New York about 9 years ago, and I was sure I was going to be on the stage.
I like that you said actor too. It was like two syllables.
Did I? Actor.
With a nice little.
That was year one. They taught us how to say actor.
Exactly.
About 5 years ago, I started to make the transition towards writing, and I I think I've kept myself willfully ignorant about this industry because I've never taken a writing course. I have no formal training as a writer. And every time I sort of try to learn a little bit more about the industry, I get a little, I feel a little suffocated. Like I feel like I'm way behind, or I feel like I am never going to make it because I have no connections. I don't know anything. So I I just kind of ignore all of those feelings and just focus on what I have control over, which is the writing and the filmmaking. Like nobody wanted to make my first pilot, so I made it myself. Nobody wanted to make these shorts, so I just make them myself with my friends, and I call in a lot of favors, and then that's what leads to the next thing. You know, I don't.
yeah.
There's no one way in. Not that I'm that far in, but yeah. I just like to do it. People try to tell me no, and I'm just like, but yes.
Have you guys like
That's great.
Googled someone you really respect who made it to see what age they made it at? Because I've definitely done that. I went through a stage where I would like Google a director or writer that I loved. You know, it's like, when did John Cassavetes like really start? And then I'm like, oh man, missed it.
It's like you can only make it in that window.
Exactly. I missed the window. I'm out.
Like, oh, it's a couple more years.
Yeah, I mean, I think in 7th grade I had a play that a teacher liked, but I didn't really do much after that. And in college, I did a lot of creative writing, but it was all trash, and gave it up for a few years. When I was in the Peace Corps a decade ago is when I really started writing and taking things seriously. And after I got out of there, I went to school and then became a reporter. So I guess as far as like the origins of writing or something that told me I had to do it forever or something like that, I don't necessarily know if it came in any particular moment. It can leave you and it can come back again, and you're never too old to start. But that's what I kind of like about it, is that no one is too old to learn. I took one pilot writing class in St. Paul, Minnesota. I brought pilot there. Being out here in LA, which I've been here a little over a year now, I haven't taken any classes. That's not a point of pride. It's just I can't really afford them. But I mean, that itself is sort of a blessing in disguise, because I super enjoyed learning how to write for TV and film just based on all the investigative digging I did and all these websites and borrowing people's screenwriting books and YouTube tutorials, and then just rereading your favorite screenplays over and over again. So, I guess that's all to say that the process of writing and learning to write is also the same process of, falling in love with writing and really planning your career around what you want to do and what you know how to do.
Well, thank you all so much for joining. I really appreciate it. And again, congratulations on your accomplishment. We wish you the best of luck moving forward. So,
Appreciate it,
everybody.
Yeah, it was nice to meet you guys too.
yeah.
Thank you.
You all have a great day.